So, Brooksy, this is outrageous. You can't just barge in here like this.
Ma'am, we need to check the premises. There's been a report.
Late-night closing shifts are supposed to be predictable, boring even. People buy snacks, fill their gas tanks, and head home. But on a lonely stretch of highway in northern Arizona, one night didn't follow the rules. This is the story of Aaliyah Brooks, a 20-year-old cashier who thought she was finishing another quiet shift, until two officers walked in. Officers everyone in town feared. Officers who believed no one ever saw what they did after the cameras turned off. But this time, someone was watching. Even the officers didn't know how much trouble they were about to walk into. And they definitely didn't know who the man in the hoodie drinking coffee in the corner really was. Because this wasn't just another night. This was the night. They cornered the wrong girl and exposed the wrong department. A 20-year-old Aaliyah Brooks was the kind of girl who didn't cause trouble. Honor roll student, volunteers on weekends, helps her mom with rent, dreams of becoming a pediatric nurse. She didn't party, she didn't fight, she didn't have time for anything except school, work, and making sure her younger brothers had food on the table. That night, she was working the closing shift at Desert Gas and Go, the only gas station open 24 hours on Highway 314, a lonely strip of desert and truckers. It was 11:47 p.m. Quiet, too quiet. She cleaned the counter, mopped the back room, counted the register. Same routine as always. Only one customer remained inside. A middle-aged Latino man in a dark hoodie, sipping from a paper cup of coffee. He had been there almost 30 minutes. Aaliyah glanced at him a few times. He wasn't bothering anyone, just quiet, observing, almost listening. Something about him felt watchful, calm. But she had no reason to worry, not yet. At 11:58 p.m., the automatic doors slid open. Two officers walked in. Officer Ray Donaldson, tall, stocky, mid-40s, with a shaved head and a jaw that looked permanently clenched. And beside him, Officer Mark Holston, younger, smirking, hands on his belt like every person was a threat. Aaliyah felt her stomach drop. Everyone in town knew them, and no one trusted them. Black drivers avoided this gas station at night because of these two. Young men reported being searched for no reason. People whispered about private backroom talks that never made the police reports. Aaliyah inhaled slowly, steadying her hands. "Evening," she said politely. Neither officer answered. The hoodie man in the corner lifted his eyes, watching. Donaldson walked to the counter and leaned in too close. Holston wandered the aisles, pretending to browse. But Aaliyah noticed something. He turned around every few seconds, watching her, like a wolf circling. Donaldson tapped the counter. "You closing alone tonight?" Aaliyah swallowed. "Yes, sir." A long pause. Then, "Mind unlocking the stockroom? I need to check something." Aaliyah tightened her grip on the counter. "The stockroom? Why?" Donaldson smirked. "Routine check." But she knew the truth. Police had no reason to search private business areas. Not without cause, not without a warrant, and his body cam off. Holston's off. They weren't here to check anything. Aaliyah's voice cracked. I can't open it. Donaldson leaned closer. You sure about that? Holston stepped behind her now, too close, blocking her exit. Aaliyah's heart hammered. The man in the hoodie watched silently, eyes half-lidded, hands around his coffee cup. He didn't blink. Donaldson whispered, "You people never learn." Aaliyah froze. Holston chuckled, cracking his knuckles. A little attitude tonight, huh? Aaliyah's hands trembled. Her mind raced. No one else is here. The cameras can be turned off. They've done this before. If they get me into that stockroom... Her voice barely escaped her throat. Please, I just want to close and go home. Donaldson reached over the counter and grabbed the keys hanging near the register. She stepped back. Don't touch that! He smiled darkly. Then open the door yourself. Holston moved behind her, lifting a hand to guide, or force, her toward the stockroom hallway. And that's when it happened. The hoodie man stood up. The officers turned. What do you want? Donaldson snapped. The man in the hoodie didn't answer immediately. He slipped one hand into his pocket. Holston stepped closer. You got something to say? The man finally spoke, calm, deep voice. Yes, I do. He pulled out a small leather badge wallet, flipped it open, and laid it flat on the counter in front of Aaliyah. The gold emblem glinted under the fluorescent lights. U.S. Department of Homeland Security. Special Agent Raul Mendoza. Internal Investigations Division. Both officers froze. Aaliyah's breath caught. Donaldson blinked. What the hell are you doing here? Mendoza's voice remained calm. Watching. Holston stiffened. Watching what? Mendoza's eyes sharpened. Watching two officers violate policy, procedure, and human decency. Aaliyah felt tears fill her eyes, relief mixed with shock. Mendoza stepped fully into the light. You can step away from her now. Donaldson tried to recover. This is a misunderstanding. No, Mendoza said. It's a pattern. Holston swallowed hard. You're undercover? Mendoza didn't blink. For 7 months. He placed his coffee cup down. For 7 months I've been following complaints. Unlawful searches, nighttime harassment, extortion, targeted stops of Black and Latino residents. Donaldson's face turned red. You have no authority over us. Mendoza smirked, the first hint of emotion. I have every authority over you, including the authority to arrest. Aaliyah stepped back, shaking, hand over her mouth. Mendoza looked at her gently. I heard everything, Miss Brooks. She nodded, tears streaming. Holston tried to step toward the exit. Let's just talk outside. No, Mendoza snapped. You stay right here. He pulled out another device, a small black recorder. I've been recording since I walked in. The officers' faces drained of color. Mendoza turned to Aaliyah. Did they threaten to force you into that back room? She nodded, voice tiny. Yes. Mendoza stepped between her and the officers. Then this is attempted coercion and abuse of authority. Donaldson lost his temper. You're ruining good cops' lives over some scared little girl? The words echoed. Aaliyah flinched. Mendoza turned, and something dangerous flickered in his eyes. Call her that again. I dare you. Holston stepped forward. Look, man, we didn't mean... Enough. Mendoza raised a hand. I know what you meant. He walked past them, straight toward the stockroom door. What are you doing? Donaldson barked. Mendoza pulled the door open. Inside? He filmed everything. The small room, the mop bucket, the narrow space. He turned back. You had no legitimate reason to bring her in here. This room is where complaints say you cornered other victims. Aaliyah gasped. You know about that? Mendoza nodded gently. That's why I was here tonight. Mendoza stepped back toward the counter. You're both under federal investigation. And as of this moment, you're both being detained. Holston panicked. You can't detain us. Mendoza pulled out cuffs. Federal issued. On the contrary, with a calmness that shook both officers, Mendoza cuffed Donaldson first. You're done. Then Holston. You're done too. Aaliyah watched in stunned silence as the two officers were disarmed, their guns, tasers, radios, and keys placed on the counter. Mendoza stepped aside. Aaliyah, do you want to press charges? She hesitated, then whispered, yes. After backup arrived, after statements were taken, and after the officers were taken into custody, Mendoza walked Aaliyah outside. The night air felt warmer, safer. Mendoza stood beside her as she waited for her mother to arrive. You were brave tonight, he said. Aaliyah shook her head. I was scared. He smiled softly. Bravery isn't the absence of fear. It's what you do despite being afraid. She glanced at him. Why were you here? Really? Mendoza exhaled. Because too many young people like you were being hurt. And no one was doing anything about it. Aaliyah looked down. Thank you. You don't need to thank me, he replied. You saved yourself. I just made sure the world saw it. The next week became a firestorm. The officers were suspended, then terminated. Then indicted, multiple victims came forward. Some stories had been buried for years. Aaliyah's statement was the spark that lit the investigation. The gas station installed more cameras. The police department underwent a full audit. Public protests demanded accountability. Aaliyah became a symbol, not of violence, but of courage. And Mendoza, he was reassigned. But before he left, he visited Aaliyah one last time. He placed the empty coffee cup, the same one from that night, on the counter. A reminder, he said, that quiet people are often the ones who see everything. On a night when Aaliyah thought she was alone, someone was watching, someone who refused to let injustice continue, someone who stepped out of the shadows at the exact moment she needed help. And because of that, what could have been a nightmare became a turning point. For Aaliyah, for the town, for the department that had gotten away with too much for too long. Because some nights, the heroes don't wear capes, and sometimes the villains wear badges. But the truth, The truth always finds a way out, especially on the night. They chose the wrong girl.